Hi, I'm Brian Jackson, editor at itbusiness.ca, and today with me I have on Hangouts on Air Mary Hattar, the Chief Marketing Officer from Checkpoint Software. Welcome, Marie.
Hi, Brian. It's great to be here.
So Marie is Canadian, even though she is actually living in the U.S. now, working as a chief marketing officer there. She did attend the University of Toronto. She attended York University for her other degree, and she was even born here in Montreal. So, why did you leave us, Marie? Why are you in the U.S.?
It was for love, believe it or not. I met my husband, and I tried to convince him to move to Canada, and he said, no, 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 the weather in California is a little bit better,
I can't argue
and
against that.
I lost the argument.
Yeah, that's solid. Okay, well that's nice and totally a valid reason for to get married to your husband and enjoy some better weather. So, do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself beyond being Canadian?
Sure. So I was born in Montreal. I studied electrical engineering at U of T, as you mentioned, and I did my MBA at York. And then I worked in the high-tech industry all my career. Most recently, I was a vice president of marketing systems. And then from there, this opportunity came up to join Checkpoint as their chief marketing officer. I've always loved anything security, and I find it a fascinating area. And so for me, it was a great opportunity to work for a great company, lead a great team, and work in an area that I love.
Yeah, that's a nice introduction, and that's what struck me as different about you is that you do have an engineering degree and you have a pretty technical background, but now you're in a role as a CMO, and I was sort of wondering, how do you think that technical background gives you maybe a unique approach as a marketer?
You know, marketing is often looked at as a combination of art and science, and certainly coming from an engineering background, you sort of have the science nailed. But believe it or not, going into engineering school, I was torn between going to the Ontario Arts College or going to engineering. And my father said, honey, you're a good artist, but most artists make it big after they're that. So why don't you study engineering instead? And so it was interesting because I loved math, I loved science, and and I found I worked as an engineer for a number of years, but I was always drawn to wanting to do something more creative. And as much as when you're in marketing is considered the dark side, over time I started shifting more and more into marketing because it allowed that creative side of me to come out. Now, how has it helped me? It's actually wonderful to be able to have intelligent conversations with the engineering teams to understand the value proposition of the product, to be able to quickly accelerate that understanding and then be able to translate it into something that everyone could understand. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to position a product in the market and show its value, you want to do it in as simple of a way as possible that everyone can understand. And
And
as much
having that
my
technical background at a software company in particular, that must be helpful, Laurie. That must come in handy, right?
it's really helpful because you can ramp up very fast on technology. It doesn't take a lot of effort to understand it and to then from there help guide the team from a marketing standpoint as to what we should showcase.
Okay. Well, another interesting aspect of your role at Checkpoint is that you work in space. Checkpoint software. Well, first of all, we should explain to people it's a security company, all about computer security, of course, like antivirus, anti-malware. Is that about right? Do you want to explain a bit more about what the
It,
software products do?
it's really internet security if you want. It's actually security for anywhere you have a connection, whether it's on your mobile device and or, you're getting onto the internet. What our company does is provide that security capabilities to make sure that it prevents threats from impacting and hurting many businesses in terms of their interactions. So it really focuses a lot on capabilities like firewalling, on advanced threat prevention, on securing your mobile devices to make sure you're safe anywhere you go.
Yeah, and it's a pretty competitive market space to me. I mean, I look at the security marketplace in IT, and there's a lot of big name brands that have, presence in box stores, and they must have huge marketing budgets because you see their uh, advertising everywhere. I could name the brands involved here, but everyone sort of knows them as the yellow. There's like the yellow brand and the red brand, and that probably indicates to people what I'm talking about. So, at Checkpoint Software, for you as the marketer, what's your strategy to sort of carve a niche and try and get some attention?
Sort of the yellow brand and the red brand tend to focus a lot of their attention on end consumers and say protecting you from antivirus on your actual computer. We have that capability, but our capability is a lot broader, and we tend to protect businesses. And in fact, we're very much used and present in the majority of the global and Fortune 100. We are, if you look at the firewalling market, we're the number one pure play security firewall vendor out there in the world. So we're very well known to business communities. We are probably not known in Checkpoint to, say, consumers, but our consumer brand, Zone Alarm, is something which is, sort of a home protection capability, something that's more familiar to consumers. But the bulk of what we focus on tends to be B2B.
And by doing that, you think you're able to get work a niche out for Checkpoint by just focusing on its value to business users? How do you communicate that?
We are very much a pure play security company. That is what we do, and what we seek to be is the very best at security. So if you're looking to work and partner with a company who is bread and butter, everything they do is security, Checkpoint's the company for that. And given when you think about all the threats and all the malware incidents that we've been seeing over the last year, security itself has gotten a lot more visibility and awareness across all businesses. So they're seeking to work with a company that can protect them, that can provide them that level of security. So the market need is there. And for us, we have a very extensive sales force that we supplement that with a lot of, if you want, outbound marketing that we do to raise the visibility of the company and the services and capabilities that we deliver.
Yeah, and another thing that occurred to me is that there's often a lot of free products that people can access when it comes to security. Is there some marketing that you have to do just to express the value of what your product offers over and trying to avoid being commoditized in that way?
Well, for most businesses, they actually don't typically tend to use the free products. I would say consumers tend to do more of that, and they trade that in for advertising space. But since the bulk of our target market is business, we don't actually see most businesses adopting what you would call freeware.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe of a small business where they might feel that they could get by on this, or perhaps not as educated about what level of IT security you should really have as a business. But you don't find that's an issue then?
Well, I was interpreting it more as, say, consumers when you asked the question. If you're looking more for, say, small business and SMBs, what we try to engage with them is really explaining to them how our holistic solution covers them from all the different elements. And if they end up purchasing certain freeware, which typically comes in as a point product, they don't really get the full security protection. They're essentially trying to plug in different holes, and they end up spending a lot more time and effort internally managing and observing that versus what you get with our portfolio is a capability to give you that security without consuming a lot of the people resources, which oftentimes a small business doesn't have a lot of people or a large IT staff or IT budget for that matter to manage. So in that perspective, when we go in and talk to some of the SMBs about this, they quickly see the value proposition of what we offer.
Okay. So I wanted to take advantage of having you here, and since you're a person, a marketer that works in the security space, and you have that technical background, I was thinking that you would have like a good point of view on hacking and what can happen to a company's reputation if they are hacked. I mean, if you point to the recent case with Sony, we heard a lot about what happened to them over the holidays. You know, all sorts of negative attention was brought. And not to mention the forthcoming lawsuits that might result from this data breach that happened with, you know, everybody heard about the interview being leaked online as a result of this, and then the whole debate over whether the movie should be pulled from theaters or not. But I think a lot of what people didn't hear about in the mainstream media as much was how much employee information was leaked as a result too, and really a lot of negative things happening to Sony there. So, you know, do you have an interesting perspective on what CMOs should know in terms of their firm's IT security setup, and should a marketing officer have some sort of disaster plan for that type of scenario?
Absolutely. You know, too often in many companies, the concept of security is relegated, one, to purely the IT organization, which is where, you know, it should sit. I'm not debating that, but it doesn't necessarily have the executive attention across the board, nor the associated budgets that are needed to protect a company and make sure that they have that security that's needed. And it's only when you start seeing the breaches and the potential reputation exposure of what could happen to you that you get your wake-up call that we really should have invested more, that we should looked into it a little more carefully. From a marketing standpoint in particular, I would say it's not just marketing. I would say it's every business unit or sort of leader, every decision maker within the company, whether it's finance, marketing, HR, you name it, should have that vested interest. I mean, you know, in Sony's case, you know, the news came out, it was very, very public, large media company. But there are so many cases out there of so many companies that get hacked that don't draw that attention, that people sometimes don't realize how big and how prevalent the problem is. But it could hit, you know, an HR department, and somebody as simply as sending them a resume with embedded malware could go in and pretty much start spying, you know, organization, and start spying and capturing whatever documents and information they have about that company. So I do believe it is in the vested interest for every business leader across all the different functions to understand what's in place from security, to make sure it's top of mind for the company, because you know, as much as I hate to say this as a harbinger of bad news, I think we're just going to continue seeing an ongoing increase in the amount of malware and in the amount of hacks that are out there.
So should business leaders sort of assume that it's only a matter of time until something like this happens and there's a hack that negatively affects their company?
Well, I think business leaders should realize that that's always possible, and that you know, no one truly is immune, but what they should set in place is multiple layers of protection. What they should set in place is the mitigation capabilities. They should look at using encryption technologies of their documents to make sure that, you know, should they be hacked, should these documents somehow get out, people can't get access to them. And you know, that's some of the innovation and technology we work on. For example, with our mobile devices, we have document protection, where should anyone email out, we actually specify within the document who can read it. So, so whether I put it on a Dropbox, for example, and Dropbox gets hacked, and someone retrieves my information, only you, Brian, if it was meant for you, would be able to open it. For someone else, it would be encrypted, and they wouldn't be able to do that. So it's really putting in place these types of steps, looking at all the different possibilities that could happen, and putting in as much layers of protection to mitigate this, knowing that there is a likelihood you will get hacked. Right now, a lot of people assume, oh, well, nobody's going to come after me. But I think instead they should be thinking of it more proactively and saying, okay, let's assume I am hacked. What are the things I need to protect? How do I protect them? What are the mitigating things? And what's my course of action for when I find out I am hacked?
Yeah, I think that's a great point on the encryption software, and I mean this is something that Sony was criticized for. Certainly, they had all sorts of like sensitive data of their employees and even their customers just stored in these spreadsheets, text readable. So for that event that it was stolen by the wrong person, they could just access it, right? Whereas if it had been encrypted, that information would have still been protected. You would have needed the right encryption key to gain access to it. So something to keep in mind for sure. So, I was reading about your bio, and I saw that you were a fan of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, and I saw her speak at Dreamforce myself. So, I was just wondering, you're a woman executive in the technology industry here, and what do you think needs to be done to make women more equal in the work environment?
So a few things. One is actually having more women in the technical arena, and for that to happen, you actually have to start younger. And I would say the critical ages are really probably from grades, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you've not got them hooked by then for girls, it's just not going to happen. And it's really important to make sure that the girls are actual, I almost want to say, developers versus users. Like, I can guarantee you, my daughters are amazing at using all the different apps out there. But one of the things I try to help direct them in is don't just be a user, but actually build your apps, start to develop it. So get them involved earlier on to be creators versus just users. I think that would go a long way. Within the workplace itself, it's really understanding that women approach things a little differently, that, and giving them the leeway to express themselves and understand that there's more than one way to look at a problem and to address it. And I think sometimes the onus is there for both men and women who have been successful in moving up career chain to make room for others, for other women, if you want, to actually have the.
Sorry, you're just breaking up a bit there, but I think I got most of your point. And I wonder, have you taken any of the principles from Lean In and implemented them at Checkpoint Software?
Checkpoint is in a very unique position, actually, where we have a lot of the leadership roles filled by women. Our head of engineering is a woman, our head of HR is a woman, our CFO is a woman, the CMO is a woman. So, so in many ways, that helps in and of itself. That actually creates a place where you sort of are embracing women more into this arena. In terms of me, myself, I definitely encourage, actually I encourage both men and women to lean in, to not sort of take the back seat, if you want, to come and step up. If you walk into a room, make sure you go and you sit at center stage, because in life there's always going to be someone who's this time do it. So there's the principles back. I still kind of.
Okay, well that's great. It was very nice of you to make the time to join us today, Mary. Great. Have the best of luck in your fairly new role, and don't forget about Canada. Come up and visit sometime.
I sure plan to. I love Canada. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Okay, so if you want to watch this again, it is available on itbusiness.ca, and there's lots of other hangouts that I've conducted with other marketers and executives that you can find on file there. Again, I'm Brian Jackson.